What's going on, everyone? It's Dungeon here, and today I'm going to be sharing with you guys my favorite and absolutely finest early weapons. So, if you're tired of picking your first weapon straight from the garbage can, you've come to the right place. Now let's get right on into it. Alright, so a couple things I want to mention. First thing is that this list is in no particular order. So what that means is that weapon number 8 is just as good as weapon number 1. It just depends on whatever type of build that you're going with. Second thing is that all this stuff is in the first area. So we're talking Limgrave and Weeping Peninsula type stuff. We're not really talking about any of the cool weapons that you might find in Caelid or something like that. I think there's one exception, but that's you'll see when you get to that exception. The other thing is that the stuff is you can get so early in the game that within maybe a first minute or two, if you're really going straight for it. And again, there's one exception for that as well, but that's only because of farming. So you might get real lucky and get it right away, but it might take a little bit depending on how the farming goes and stuff like that. The other thing I want to mention is that some of the items that you get can come from the starting classes, or at least some alternatives can come from some of the starting classes, and I'll go to that as soon as we get there. So let's go ahead and move on to the first weapon. So for number 8, what I got for you guys is the Broadsword, and the Broadsword is definitely a sleeper. This thing is so good, but people don't really realize, and you can get this thing so early in the game. But the best thing about it is that the DPS has actually the highest in most categories for straight swords. It doesn't matter what type of infusion that you do, this thing is really going to outperform almost every single straight sword. I mean, there are a couple that maybe in niche areas you might be able to get a better DPS, but that's what this thing has to offer. The other thing about this that's really good is that it has a lot of swiping action on its moveset. So that benefits for any kind of crowd control problems that you might have. The only downside for this is that it only has horizontal swipes. It doesn't really have any thrusting attacks. And while thrusting attacks are super good, that's really the only downside, other than it kind of is a little bit shorter than some of the other straight swords. But I mean, when you have pretty much the best damage for all the straight swords, I mean, and you have good horizontal swipes and stuff, like, it's just awesome. I mean, this weapon, if you haven't played with it, then you really ought to give it a try, especially because you get it so early in the game. So let's go ahead and talk about where you can get this thing. Alright, you guys, so if you're coming from the Gatefront Ruins, then you just go on back to the Church of Ella or the First Step. From there, you want to travel on down to the coastline. Once you get to the coastline, you actually just follow that thing up past the Coastal Cave and then to Nomadic Merchant, which is where you buy it. You can pick it up also if you start as the Confessor class. I would definitely try this one out as soon as you can. It's a real good one. That's the Broadsword, everyone. Alright, so for number 7, I've got for you guys the Estoc. And this one is rightfully called the best stock, even in this game. It got the name a long time ago in the Dark Souls game, but every single iteration of the game, this one always performs. And while it may not do the absolute most damage in its class, I believe it's the Clean Rot Sword, but while it doesn't do the most damage, this thing has the best moveset. I mean, if for a thrusting sword, you see what I'm seeing. It actually has a horizontal swipe, and that's the heavy attack. So with super good thrusting attacks and crowd control swiping attack, and also it has it does have some of the best damage. This is not as good as the Clean Rot Sword, but no matter what infusion you put on it, it's going to be pretty good. It actually has like nearly the longest reach out of all thrusting swords. I think the longest reach is probably the Noble's Estoc, actually. So I mean, you combine everything. There's a reason why it's called the best stock, and that's because it's pretty much the best weapon as far as thrusting weapons in the game. Alright, so let me go ahead and show you where you get this one. Alright, boys and girls, this one's easy. From the Gatefront Ruins, just follow the path north past the Stormhill Shack. And the road will actually end, and you just jump down, and a new path will begin that goes all the way around Stormvale Castle. Get to the site of Grace, but then continue on the path, and it'll bring you to a nomadic merchant right next to a new site of Grace. Talk to that nomadic merchant, buy the Estoc. Otherwise, you can pick it up right from the get-go if you pick the prisoner's class at the start of the game. So, don't wait, try out the Estoc, or should I say, best stock. Alright, you guys, so for the next one I have the Sacrificial Axe, and boy oh boy, this one is so interesting. First thing I gotta say about this is it will, every single time you kill an enemy, it will replenish your FP. It's not a lot, it's a little bit. I think it's about 4 FP every single time you kill someone, but hey, that's free FP. Alright, the other thing I gotta mention about this is that it takes infusions really well, especially cold infusion. I mean, if you're playing a mage, if you have like any kind of indication where you might put a few points into strength, get this thing, like for sure. I think it needs like 16 strength, but holy smokes, this thing is absolutely amazing. The only real downside is that it's got a pretty short reach, and when I mean short reach, if you play with this thing, you know what I mean. It does have a short reach, but all you have to do is hold it. Like if you're a straight up mage and you're shooting people with missiles and stuff like that, as long as it's in your hand, then you'll be getting FP every single time you kill someone. So you don't even have to use it to kill people as long as out. And then if someone does get close, then you just use it on them. And if you have frost, you know, Horfrost Stomp or any other kind of frost, even just regular magic infusion is pretty good with this thing. Super good. So pretty much if you're any kind of magic user, if you're a cleric type class, whatever, use it. Try it out if you haven't, and holy smokes, man, this thing is so fun to use. Let's go ahead and see how to get it. Alright, you guys, this one's probably the most difficult. Getting there is easy. Just follow the main road from Gatefront straight south. Once you get to the Weeping Peninsula, all the way south, that is actually where you'll have to fight one of the death birds. Probably one of the more difficult ones, but if you're going to kill the death bird anyways, make sure you fight it at night, and then you should be good to go. You'll have it, and it is fantastic. Try it out, Sacrificial Axe. Alright, so the next weapon I have for you guys, actually the only weapon on this list that upgrades with Somber Stones, that's the Reduvia. And this is a dagger, but a very special dagger. It has a very special move attached to it. Basically, you can fling your own blood out, and it is pretty darn cool when you use it, especially if you're playing a bleed build. It is so fun to play with. It does definitely some work, and because it upgrades with Somber Stones, it can potentially be really, really, really good, because if you know where the Somber Stones are, you can upgrade this thing really high, really early in the game. You can get it pretty much almost maxed out if you know what you're doing. But it features really fast movements, even some stabs and stuff like that, which is super cool. Some thrusting stabs and stuff like that. You can pair it with another dagger and do some real good dual wielding stuff with this thing. And in one of the recent patches, they actually made daggers a little bit better. So Reduvia, super cool weapon. I'll show you how to get this thing right now. Alright, so in order to get this one from the Gatefront Ruins, just follow the path south across the bridge, and basically you want to follow it down and off the path into the pond or lake or whatever, and then back underneath the bridge, and then you'll get into an NPC fight. But don't worry, as long as you can hold out a little while, there's an NPC that will actually join the fight, like an ally, and he'll help you out, and between you and this NPC, you'll be able to kill the NPC invader. So shouldn't be too much a problem. After you kill him, that's when you get to Reduvia, guys. Check it out. Alright, so for the next one I got on the list is the Morning Star. This one is an absolute beast. Not only does it do strike damage, but it also does bleed damage innately. So this thing is a very good strength weapon, hybrid strength and dex. It does well with faith infusions, and obviously it does well with arcane infusions and stuff like that. This thing specifically bleed. This thing has a pretty good moveset. It actually even has, it's really strange, it has like a thrusting crouch attack actually, which is really crazy. But it's got a lot of downward smashing attacks and stuff like that. And you get it really early on, which is super cool. This one is, and there's that almost like piercing thrusting attack, I should say. So really cool weapon. It's got a lot going for it. It's got pretty good DPS. And I'll put this out there too. If you're not really hot on this weapon's ability to do bleed damage, like maybe that's not your bag, then you can go straight for the mace. The mace is actually a good alternative to this one. It doesn't do any bleed damage, and it actually scales a little bit better with like faith and with strength and stuff like that. It just doesn't have any of the bleed buildup. So that is my number 4 pick for the weapons. Let me go ahead and show you how to get this thing. It's real easy to get this one. All you gotta do from the Gatefront Ruins is take the path south across the Bridge of Sacrifice and into the ravine. Once you get into that ravine, there's actually a carriage that has been broken down or whatever, and it's actually just sitting in the back. Do keep in mind there's some dogs, there's some soldiers, there's a troll, there's some misbegotten, so be careful, but otherwise it's real easy to get, guys. Check it out. The number 3 weapon I've got is the large club, and this one is the ultimate strength weapon for the beginning of the game. You can get this thing for probably 60 seconds, maybe 2 minutes of the game, and just put a heavy infusion on this thing and rock it. Put highest strength you can get, and just upgrade this thing as much as you can. You see the power. I mean, right now the infusion that I have is arcane, and it does 130 blood build up. You don't have to do that. You could just go straight strength with this thing. This thing is an absolute beast. The amount of stagger potential, look at that. I just hit the dude once and he already got staggered. This thing is absolute monster early game. When you get probably late game, I'll probably say switch this thing out for the Great Stars or something like that. But otherwise, I mean, this thing is so good. It doesn't weigh too much. It has lots of stagger potential. It's got strike damage. Hello, strike damage. And it's got reach too. I mean, take a look. You could hit someone from like almost halfway across the map. So let me show you guys how to get this thing and have some fun with it. Alright, this one's real easy to get to. From the Gatefront Ruins, follow the path south till you get to the Forlorn Hound Evergull, and just jump off the back end a couple times and you'll drop down right onto it. Actually, it's right next to a couple demi-humans, and hey, if you're into the spiked club, you can farm the big one for the spiked club. But yeah, super easy to get to, awesome strength weapon. Try it out, guys. For number 2, I'm bringing you guys the Bandit's Curved Sword, and this thing, in my opinion, out of all the curved swords, is the best. Alright, it has some of the highest DPS across all different type of infusions, and it has probably the best reach out of all the curved swords. It's got probably the best moveset out of all curved swords. I mean, this thing is absolutely amazing. The only thing I would say about this that's maybe not actually the best is that it weighs a little bit more. And when I mean a little bit more, I mean like maybe 1 unit or a half a unit, or no more than 1.5 units or something, than the rest of the curved swords. But if that's a problem, just pair it with another curved sword when you're dual wielding these things, and it is just awesome. This thing is so fun to use, especially if you like dual wielding or if you like curved swords and stuff. If you haven't picked this one out and tried it out, then you are missing out, man, because this thing is so fun to use. And especially when you consider how much damage that you're doing this thing, it really does perform. So all the good stuff said, let me go ahead and tell you how to get this, because that's probably one of the worst things about it. Alright, so this one's easy to get to. Just follow the path from the gate fronts all the way south, past the Bridge of Sacrifice, through the ravine, and then you make a sharp right hand turn to follow the path along all the way till you get to the Church of Pilgrimage. From there, right next to the Church of Pilgrimage bonfire, there is a graveyard that has a bandit skeleton. From there, you can just farm that thing over and over and over again. It might take you a little while to get it, but just keep trying. And if you do get it, try to kill him a couple more times. Maybe you get a second one. A lot of times you get a second one after you get the first one. All right, so try this thing out. So for the very last one I have on this list is the Uchigatana. You guys knew it was going to be on this list. I ain't going to abandon you katana lovers out there, okay? Yes, this thing is good. I'm not going to lie to you. It comes stock with bleed damage. Of course this thing is good, okay? So, what does it have going for it? Well, number one, it's a katana. That means it has thrusting attacks. It has slashing attacks. And actually, most of the slashing attacks that it has are horizontal swipes. Although, when you're two-handing it, a few of them actually are vertical swipes, actually. This thing, not only that, listen to this. This is crazy about this weapon. It actually has really good stagger damage, too. So, honestly, especially considering how soon you can get this thing, like you can get it, honestly, probably the first, 2 minutes or something of the game or whatever, and you can keep this thing through to almost the very end. I mean, there's only a handful of weapons in the katana class that I would say are like that much better. So, and even still, you can like dual wield it, and then you'll still probably want to keep this thing. And if you pick the samurai class, you could dual wield this thing like pretty much right from the get-go, which is super crazy. All right, so let me go ahead and, since I've talked enough about this thing, it's a really good dex slash strength weapon. It's a real good arcane weapon. It's real good in general. But since I've talked about it enough, why don't we go ahead and show you guys how to get it. So what you want to do is follow the path from the Gatefront Ruins north, around the Stormhill Shack, and then go all the way until right before you get to the bridge. There'll be a side path that you can take to the north where you can get to the Death Touch Catacombs. Now, I'm going to give you guys a little bit of extra bonus here, because in the Death Touch Catacombs there's a lot of undead. Same thing with the number 2 weapon, the Bandit Curve Sword. It's an undead, so let me show you how to deal with them real quick, okay guys? Alright, so here's my suggestion. Basically what I want you to do is follow this path that I'm going until you get to the Third Church of America. From there, right around the corner, across that little river / lake, you'll see a teardrop scarab, and kill it, and then you'll get the Sacred Blade Ash of War. This thing is so good early game. It adds extra holy damage, and it'll help you to kill those skeletons, and they won't revive. So make sure you grab this when you start up a new run, okay guys? Alright you guys, that concludes this episode of Elden Ring Tips and Tricks, where I shared with you my favorite and absolutely finest early weapons. If you had fun, if you learned something, if you enjoyed watching this, hit that like button, share the video, subscribe to the channel, and press the bell icon so you don't miss another video. And as always, thanks, stay cool, and bye everyone.